Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we'll be discussing our Game Week 3 team selection, but also a transfer that I've already made and one I'm looking at going forward. We'll also do a little piece on captaincy, so keep an eye on for that. And also, the goal for this video is 350 likes. Let's see if we can get there, and let's get straight into the video. So on goal we've got Dean Henderson. Not a keeper I'm particularly happy with starting away at Chelsea, but I just think I'm going to have to hold on to him for the time being. Like I said, I have 1.5 million in the bank and one free transfer. I started this week with 2 free transfers, so we have made one move. We're currently 1.4 million in the world, which I'm very, very happy with, I have to say. This time last year, I was nowhere near this type of rank. And I think if you're not anywhere near this type of rank yet, or you're kind of struggling near the start, I wouldn't worry too much. We still have 36 weeks to go. And I know there's a lot of people already flying, maybe near the top 100k. So if that's you, congrats, because that's absolutely amazing so far. But yeah, Dean Henderson is on goal. I think I'm quite happy with him for the time being, only because I don't see a goalkeeper move kind of worth it near the start of the season. I think maybe after 5 or 6 fixtures, he might catch up and finally get a clean sheet. But let's see. So far, happy with Henderson. So in the defence, the same back three as last week. Trent, Robinson and Pedro Porro. 3 players that returned last week and I was absolutely delighted with. Of course, we didn't see an attacking return from Trent last week, nor Porro, but a clean sheet for both of them. And an assist for Robinson late in the game for Fulham. So I think Trent, I don't know what to expect going into that United fixture. I can't say I expect a clean sheet. Maybe an attacking return, but I think Liverpool and United, that game will be quite cagey. And we might see an early goal that could change the game completely. So happy going into this week with Trent. For me, Trent, one of the best assets in the entire game. Definitely holding on to him for the time being. Robinson, that Ipswich fixture is lovely, and definitely happy to have him going into this fixture. That Leicester home fixture would have been the banker. Of course, he didn't keep a clean sheet, but going into Ipswich away, you're still quite confident maybe you can get an attacking return. Pedro Porro, of course, going away to Newcastle, not an ideal fixture. And I think in general, this team is not filled with fixtures that you'd look at and feel comfortable with. But, every week is not going to be perfect for your team. So 4 away fixtures for the defence, not looking great on paper. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some returns. That fixture against Newcastle at St James's Park will be a tough one for Spurs, and definitely a tester for the season going forward. This is a massive game for Spurs though. Playing the North London derby at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium the following week. So let's see what happens, and let's get straight into the midfield. So getting into the midfield, I've used my first transfer this season, Nkunku to Morgan Rogers for Villa. For that lovely Leicester away fixture. So I think there's a multitude of reasons why I would have brought in Rodgers. Mostly I would say the price. I think for a 5 million asset, the most you can ask for is 90 minutes. But I feel like Rodgers comes with so much more at that price point. And compared to the 5.5s, he lives up to the expectation in comparison. So he gets 90 minutes. He's playing number 10 for a good Villa team. And all you need to see is maybe a bit of confidence from Watkins, and Rodgers will start returning consistently. I think we've seen against Arsenal, that performance was amazing. And for a man not to return, it says a lot about a player, considering so many people are bringing him in. And that goes for both Salah teams and Haaland teams. So I think we'll start to see a lot more Rodgers. The only caveat I have for Rodgers is his minutes going forward with the Champions League. I'm not quite sure exactly when the Champions League starts, but I could imagine his minutes will be altered. Comparing them to other options, it could be the likes of a Leon Bailey, and that would have been the perfect amount of funds to go from a 6.5 in Nkunku to a Leon Bailey. But for me, Bailey is usually the first player in that Villa team to be subbed off. So I think I'm quite happy to just carry on going forward with a Rodgers instead of a Bailey, who I think probably is a better asset overall. But I think Rodgers is a bit more punty, and definitely frees you up some more money to do some other transfers. For example, which we'll get into the 4s in a second. But yeah, let's go on to Bruno Fernandes. So for me, Bruno, look, he's not been amazing. I can't say he has because he hasn't returned. But for me, he's doing everything but return. For any of the Bruno owners, he's just a bit like Eze. He's not returning, but he's doing all the right things that you want from an FPL asset. He's a very difficult fixture against Liverpool, of course, at home. But I always feel like it's the type of fixture where if anything's going to happen for United, surely Bruno is going to be involved. And I know I always say that, but I don't know. I feel like it's right to hold faith in Bruno. What could I do if I didn't want Bruno? So he's had a price drop to 8.4 million. And that gives me 9.9 to use, and that can get me to any of the City assets in midfield. So the likes of a Foden, who we haven't seen feature yet, except in that first game for 45 minutes. He missed last game due to illness, and of course Kevin De Bruyne, who scored I think 12 points in the last game, who I considered last week for a -4, but I'm not too bothered because I don't think it would have been worth it. But yeah, Bruno at home to Liverpool, I think I'm going to hold faith in him. And we'll move on to Diogo Jota. So Diogo Jota has been amazing. An assist last week for Luis Diaz. And he got subbed off for Darwin, I believe, or Gakpo. I'm quite happy to carry on with Diogo Jota. They're just after signing Chiesa, but I don't think it will take too many minutes off Jota. It's more likely Diaz, the left winger, who's going to get subbed off. I think Jota will eventually be a transfer out in the future. Whether that's on wildcard 6 or maybe I want to transfer him out a bit before because he's starting to lose minutes. But for now, he's definitely a hold, and I'm very happy to own a player like Jota now. I think it's mostly for the point that, not many people will be bringing in Jota because they will have the minutes risks in the back of their head. And anyone that has Jota doesn't want to get rid of him. So definitely a very happy hold. And let's move on to Son and Salah. Let's bring up the captaincy graphic to speak about these two players. So if we get into the captaincy for my team this week, I think it is a bit of a more difficult one than the usual weeks. This week we've got Salah and Son. Now you're probably surprised to see Son here again. He's one I spoke about a lot last week for his brace. Unfortunately, I didn't go there last week with the captaincy. Congratulations to all the people in the comments who are saying that they went there because of me. It's always a great feeling when you take a risk, but again, it's not enough what I've done. I just tried to convince you to do it, so fair play. So I think this week we'll start with Son. So that away fixture at Newcastle, I think there'll be more goals than you probably expect, and it could be a good opportunity for Son. And also we haven't seen Solanke in training yet, and also Richarlison hasn't been featured in any of the training clips that we've seen on Twitter yet. So that leaves Sonny with an opportunity to play up top again. And I think it'll be a game where in St James's Park, where Newcastle are not off to one of the best starts. They'll be trying to fly out the gates and attack Spurs with the home crowd behind them. So I think Spurs will find a lot of space in this game, and if Newcastle are not careful, they will be caught out. And I know it's so easy for me to say with the game not after being played out, and it could end up a 0-0. But I think on paper, that's how I see it going, where Newcastle will be trying to get us off to a bad start early, like we've seen before in previous fixtures. In the last few games, we've seen many goals in the Newcastle Spurs fixture. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it again. And Spurs, with Sonny playing up top again, I just feel like, it's more of a reason why you might captain him. Now, for me, I don't think Spurs are better with Son up top. I think in general, we're better with him on the wing. But in terms of goal tallies, maybe he's probably a better FPL asset. And with the likes of Wilson Odobert maybe playing on the wing, I feel like he's a very creative player. And captaincy will go down to maybe minor things this week. Any one of these premium assets, like the likes of a Palmer, Saka, Haaland, it could go down to something as simple as a penalty. And suddenly the player's on 3 bonus and maybe a 10 or 12 pointer. So Sonny definitely an option for captaincy. I think he's way more riskier than maybe last week. But of course, he's after clocking 16 points in that last fixture versus Everton. 3 bonus points, 2 goals and 1.14 XG and 0.05 expected assists. So if he's playing up top, definitely a nice fixture for Son. And probably one that needs to be looked at a bit more. Let's move on to Mohamed Salah. So I think he's probably most likely to be my captain. The way less riskier option out of the two, in my opinion. And I do think these are the two best captaincy options in my team. So when I look at Salah, something that springs to my mind is his record against United. Now I know it's one of those Fugazi type stats where this affects none of his future fixtures, and you're right. But I don't know, I just feel like Liverpool playing United, Salah tends to do well. And if we look at some of his maybe 7 or 8 last fixtures, he's like 14 goal contributions, I want to say. I'm going to try pull up a graphic to try to display some of the stats versus United in recent years. Now, these are probably nitpicked results, but you get my point. So he's definitely a good option this week. Last week, another 10-pointer. He's just so consistent. And United don't have Shaw fit, so they most likely will play someone that is out of position. 10 points last week, 1 goal, and his numbers weren't the greatest, 0.5 xg. But again, these two options that I'm showing on the screen here are some of the best finishers in the league, and I suppose Sonny especially. He only needs one type of chance to return, so I don't read into the xg numbers and expected assist numbers. I know Watkins done very well off of very little expected assists last season. There will always be outliers, and especially with only 2 weeks worth of data, it's definitely not worth looking into. But yeah, that concludes the captaincy section. Who am I leaning towards? 100% Salah. I can't see my mind changing unless maybe we get some injury news on Newcastle. Now, a good thing to note actually before we move on from this section is Newcastle played 90 minutes midweek, and they won on penalties marginally. So I don't know if that's a good thing for the Newcastle players to maybe be in a bit more rhythm, but I look at it as a way as maybe Spurs will be a bit more fresh going into this fixture. So let's move on back to our forwards. So finally getting into the forwards, I've got Alexander Isak up top and Dominic Solanke, who you're probably still surprised to see in my team. So Solanke I'm probably definitely going to get rid of. I don't think he's going to feature this game week. Maybe he's back for the Arsenal one, but I still probably think you're better off getting rid of him. Why haven't I got rid of him yet for a Watkins, who I have the exact amount of funds to do? Mostly because I wanted to try to get as much information as possible. I wanted the confirmation that Solanke was going to be out, but also with that, his price has been locked due to the change in flags. So it looks like he's going to be locked at 7.5 for a while, I want to say. He probably should have been dropped in price by now for sure if he wasn't locked. And I just wondered, is there an opportunity to grab maybe another 0.1 from a Watkins price drop? Because I know Watkins is expected to drop and he has no flag on him, so he will eventually. So maybe by the time you watch this, whether that's tomorrow or the next day, he might drop and we can make 0.1 million off him. And the worst case scenario, I suppose, we'd be priced out with Solanke going down and Watkins not going down, but I can't see that happening. So I will make the move. I'm almost certain. I will be doing a deadline stream, so you can check me out there if you want to know for sure. But I'm going to hold off, wait a bit longer to see if I can get that price drop. And if not, we'll go an alternative route. I'm not quite sure what that is. But looking at some of the other transfers I could have made, it could have been a Son to a Palmer. And I know that's quite popular this week after seeing Palmer's, I think, 16-pointer, I want to say. But it's easy to get quite carried away with that performance. Wolves aren't the greatest side, I want to say. But yeah, that Crystal Palace fixture is lovely, and I can understand why you'd bring in a Palmer. The only other thing is, I feel like with the likes of Son being on 18 points after 2 weeks, Saka being on 18, and now Palmer on 19, these are the type of players that will return consistently over a span of fixtures. It doesn't matter really which one you have. It's about jumping on and off at the right times. But I still think it's a small bit too early for me to move on from Son, so I think I'm going to hold on to him. So let's talk about Isak. I know a lot of people are transferring Isak out. I just can't see myself doing it, especially with Tottenham at home. I won't be surprised if Newcastle score. It's actually very, very likely, and I really doubt Spurs keep a clean sheet. But Isak is a phenomenal striker, man. I still call him the second best in the league. I think it's more so Newcastle have started a bit slower in comparison, rather than Isak being poor. So I think, looking at this team, it's not the best run of 11 fixtures I have here. Majority being away and some difficult fixtures in there. But again, like I said, every week is not going to be ideal, and I think next week looks quite bright. On the bench, of course, we've got João Pedro away to Arsenal. I don't think he'll be getting anywhere near the team unless I really want a bank transfer, but I can't see that happening. Of course, Barco, who's gone to Sevilla now, and Ben Johnson on the bench. So I'm happy with my team. Again, we are 1.4 million in the world with an overall points of 146. Any type of green arrow next week, I'll be happy with for sure. If we break into the top 1 million, happy days. If you want to see more, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I know a lot of people aren't subscribed, but I completely understand. And I'll be doing a stream with FPL Fran tomorrow, so be sure to check that out. It will be in the evening, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. And we will discuss maybe a Game Week 3 preview. And of course, we will be doing our usual deadline stream and at 9:30, I want to say, on Saturday. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next.